all of you here this evening. Despite the rains and the traffic, I know you braved it here. Thank you so much for coming. We have some new people here, and I think people didn't know that the Bliss Catchers event happens in Odyssey every month. We feature it on the last Saturday of every month, and the event looks at people who have braved the choice of leaving a predictable career but have chosen to do what gives them joy. So somebody was asking me, just before the event, saying, why did you guys start doing this? But the reason is that, this was a journey that we took, my husband and I. My husband, AVIS Viswanathan here, actually curates this event series. And he's a consultant in the space of organizational transformation and organizational behavior. But apart from that, more importantly, he calls himself a Happiness Curator, where we like to look and talk to a lot of people and understand their journey of happiness. What gives people happiness and why do they do what they're doing? And that is what led us to curating this event series. Avis is also the author of the book Fall Like a Rose Petal, which is based on our life journey and our understanding of ourselves and why, the path that we were choosing. So anyway, we have some very interesting guests here today. I want to start with introducing the team from the Post Box. So we have Nikhil and we have Madhuvanti. The Post Box team is actually a very young team. They're all of not even 1.5 years old, I think. It's a startup. 1 year and 2 months is what Nikhil and Madhu tell me. Nikhil left his job at Facebook to set up the Post Box, and Madhu, he's an engineering graduate, mechanical engineering graduate. Madhu did fashion designing at Nanyang, Singapore, and she was in Milan, and she did her master's in Milan, and one would have expected her to start a line of her own, but here she is, and the two of them, the team that is curating the products at the Post Box. Amazing startup, because I think they are, you can see some of their products on display, and please also look at their website, because I think, the lifestyle products that they curate, I think the artists that make them, you're a bridge between them and the consumer, because they probably just focused on their art, and the Post Box serves as a platform by which they reach the consumers. So it's amazing that they've come up with this idea. And I think, Nikhil, you're all of 24? 25. And Madhu, you're 21? 22, oh my God. Fantastic. At this age, they've realized what they want to do, and we'll talk to them and understand their journey. We also have a very dear friend, Sriram Iyer, whom I think we just met by chance and got to know very well over the last 10 years. I think Sriram's was also a very interesting story. He left his corporate job, and he runs this NGO called Nalanda Way. A lot of you must have heard of Nalanda Way. They work with children and those who don't have opportunities, and they use various methodologies like theater, art, films, and music, whatever forms in which they can communicate and express themselves. And I think Sriram and Nalanda Way, they do an amazing job, the team, because I've seen some of their productions, and it's amazing that the children can express themselves so beautifully. And what was amazing is the way some of the films shot by the children, encouraged by Nalanda Way. I think it's an amazing journey that he's had too, and we'll also want to know what prompted you to take this path. So with that introduction, I'll hand it over.
Thank you so much for braving the rain and being here and helping us start on time. On time is equal to 7:10 p.m., although the advertised time is 7 p.m. But, I mean, even that 10-minute delay rankles me somewhere at the back of my head. So I didn't want to spill over by even a few more seconds than that. So that was possible because many of you still made it. Thank you so much. So Nikhil, Madhu, and Sriram, we'll get to you and your stories in just a little bit. But I want to actually take a little time to kind of set the context because I see a lot of new people, some people who have read my book and have come here because the book resonated with them. Thank you so much. The whole idea of writing the book was to share what we've gone through so that somewhere people may find a connection to their lives. So there are people like that, and then there are people who have read the story in today's Hindu, and even we didn't know it was coming. Thank you for making time and being here. And there are a couple of people I just realized who just walked in to the store, found something interesting happening, could not contain their curiosity, and have joined us. So thank you again. And some of our old-timers, legends, yes, legends. Thank you, Ramesh. Yes, legends. The Bliss Catcher community, founding members of it. You know, Ramesh, Suresh over here, R.V. Rajan, of course. He's been here more than a few times. Seshadri, and of course, Shobha, you've been here once before, right? We're missing a couple of people. They're traveling, but thank you, everyone, for making the time. I want to actually start by talking a little bit about this concept of bliss itself. My daughter, Anchal, unfortunately, she couldn't be here, but she's the primary force behind ensuring that the Postbox team of Nikhil and Madhu are featuring on our show this evening. She came to me like a couple of months ago and she said, Dad, at the Bliss Catchers, you need to really have Nikhil and Madhu. And I said, who are they? And that's how the conversation started. I was working on my laptop and she said, close everything. And she went and punched the postbox.in. And at the moment I read their story, I knew they would fit in. And then we met at the Chemias for coffee. So in a way, it was Anchal who motivated us to consider featuring the two of you. So I'll begin with Anchal again, because 2 days ago, she came to me, I was watching television, and she brought her laptop, and she said, read this. And this turned out to be a piece which had come in my Facebook feed, but I didn't think much of it, I just let it pass, I didn't read it then. But it was a piece by an author, thinker, and he calls himself a life enthusiast. His name is Mark Manson. And the title of the piece was Screw Finding Your Passion. And Mark's premise is that don't make finding your passion your bliss such a big deal. Come on, take it easy. As kids, so this is his argument, as kids, all of us love to do some things, and all of us tried doing many things, and all of us hated doing many things. So he said we never made a fuss about it. If we liked playing on the beach, building castles on the beach, we did it. If we liked playing with Lego, we did it. If we liked tearing apart a car, dismantling it, a toy car, we did it. And in today's world, I think kids play video games and they do all kinds of stuff on the phones, on the smartphones, on their iPads. So his whole argument is that kids don't fuss about their bliss. So why do we adults fuss about it? And he said, therefore, don't come and tell me this, he calls it bullshit. He says, don't come and give me this bullshit that you don't know what your bliss is. Of course you know what your bliss is. You just don't want to follow it because somewhere along the way, you put a price tag on your life. And you're beginning to ask yourself, does this give me an economic return? If this does not give me an economic return, then I'm possibly not going to walk in that direction. And because I'm continuously looking at that economic return, somewhere I've forgotten what gives me joy. So his whole thing is, screw finding your passion. You know it. You're just too obsessed with earning a living that you're not following your bliss. And I thought that was a very powerful story. So although she's not here, I must thank Anchal for introducing me to that very nice piece. Just Google for Mark Manson and screw finding your passion, and it's a long article, but every bit of it concerns what we're going to talk about today. So what exactly is bliss? And we're going to hear it from these people, but I just want to tell you that somebody here Ramesh was asking me a little while ago that, so is this based on Joseph Campbell's philosophy? Yes, it is. It is inspired by Joseph Campbell's philosophy, and Joseph Campbell, the American mythologist and author, said, talked about following your bliss. And his whole idea was that if you follow your bliss, doors will open for you, no matter what. Because joy drives you to people, connects you to people that will help you, connect with more people that will help you in the direction of what you want to be doing in life. In my book, I have talked about it also. There's an entire chapter on Follow Your Bliss. And I have talked about it from the point of view of enlightenment. That bliss in a way is actually enlightenment. Enlightenment not as in sitting under a Bodhi tree and deriving it, It so happened that he was sitting under a Bodhi tree. I don't think Bodhi tree guarantees enlightenment at all, So bliss to me personally is an awareness of your coming alive. So as we hear Nikhil and Madhu talk, as we hear Sriram talk, we're actually going to hear stories of what makes them come alive. And as long as you're aware of this aliveness in you, that is your bliss. And again, how do you find it? How do you know this is what is going to make you come alive? You try many things. And then 3 outcomes are possible when you try anything. 1, you'll love it. It'll give you joy. You'll immerse yourself in it. 2, you'll not like it much. And 3, you'll loathe it. You just don't want to do it. So obviously, 2 and 3 are out the window. And what you keep repeating again and again and again is what gives you joy. And when you decide that this is what gives you joy, eventually you will find that there is an opportunity to have an entire life doing just that. And that's the premise for this series, and that's what brings us to this conversation with these 3 wonderful people. So sorry about that, a little detailed preamble, but a lot of new people out there, and I thought I must go back to revisiting the concept a little bit. So thank you again. Let me start with Sriram, of course. I told you I don't know who I'm going to start with. I just looked at you and I'm starting. So Sriram's story is pretty interesting. The Gujarat riots in 2002, he kept a corporate job, and the Gujarat riots in 2002 kind of stirred something within him. He saw it up close. And then there was a little boy that walked into his life. So I'm going to ask you some questions about that time. And interestingly, I know a bit of the story having heard him at another conference. And I'm keen to hear it one more time, okay, about what happened when the boy selling agarbatti came to you. But my first question to you, Sriram, is what was the kind of job that you kept? A, I mean, we know it was a corporate job, but in what area was it? And B, what about the Gujarat riots turned your insides out? I mean, was it about the communal part of it? Was it about the humanity side of it? And how did it link up to what you're doing at Nalanda Way? Do you want to talk?
Okay, madam. Yes, I will. So I used to work for this company called Midex Ibhar, which is primarily a software development company in the space of customer relationship management. So it was a software which automates all customer-facing functions. So primarily working out of India, working with customers in Europe, working with customers in the US. that was my job. I was not a techie, but I was in the business development side. So my job was to work with large companies, the CEOs and COOs, and looking at ways how we can automate their processes to make it more efficient, more effective, so that customers are more satisfied. So that's my job. Work led me to being in Baroda in 2002. It was for meeting a customer, but it was May of 2002. It was the height of riots. Ahmedabad, Baroda, these are very interesting places because you would have a part of the city which is completely oblivious to a set of portion of the city which is completely in riots.
Okay.
It's extremely ghettoized portions which only Muslims live, and which means there is a certain population which just doesn't know. Well, I've been reading about what was happening, but seeing it up and close helped me understand, or scared me to understand that we're capable of such violence, that we're capable of such hate. And it does not have to be people whom you would normally see in movies, who are tall and dark and have all the stereotypes attached to it. It can be you and me, and still I would do the kind of things that I would not have imagined that I would do to you. So what led me after was a deep sense of trying to understand what makes us violent. Why are we the way that we are? What moves us to doing the kind of hate and anger which I would not have done in normal times? Is it something coming from a space that we are all naturally extremely cruel people, just acting to be humane? Do we need a policeman to tell us, okay, be on the line? Or do we need a policeman in the form of a god to tell us that we be on the line? Otherwise, we are capable of being such violent people. I think that was the spark. What makes us do the kind of things? And that led me to meeting people, reading up, and it started from a place that we're all acting to be humane people. We're all given a choice, given a chance that nobody's going to question us. We would do the kind of things that we're capable of doing. And at times, our prejudices, our fears, all that we think is latent among us, we'll exploit that. But I think as we went along, I also realized that we're also extremely humane people. We are capable of such levels of empathy and charity too. So there is a dichotomy there. There is a problem. The problem is that I just do not know how to handle myself in extraordinary situations. I just do not know how to show empathy in extreme situations. It is a continuous need for me to practice that empathy, which I do not have opportunities today in my regular lives, because I'm living in a place where I'm living in silos. I'm living in a place where I do not meet poor people. I do not, if I'm somebody of a certain caste, of a certain religion, and because somebody, while I'm growing up, told me that these people are bad people, I continue to believe that. And I'll be living in an extremely polarized environment, and this is not new. Without getting into the politics of why Gujarat and what Gujarat is, violence is not new to our country. Violence is not new to human beings. We just need reasons to fight. And I think that led these conversations, but I still didn't quit. I wasn't looking to start an NGO. All of these were very existential questions, which I don't think I found answers till today. But
you were asking them, so that was important.
Yes.
So what led you to quit? I mean, that trigger of quitting, how did that happen?
So this was 2004 December. We used to have an office in Hadders Road. My boss sits in the audience, so he can vouch for that. But it was 8 o'clock in the evening. I think we were handling one really disaster implementation, possibly in Australia. And we're trying to figure out how to fix it, 8 o'clock in the evening. In walks in a little boy into my cabin and says, do you want to buy agarbattis? My first thought was, I have sinus. I'm not somebody who's very good with incense and smoke. I immediately dismiss him off, but the first thought is, how did you get inside my cabin? There is security, there is access. Somebody's asking you, who are you? Nobody seemed to have asked him. He came inside. But there's something curious about it. I actually told him, dismiss him off. I don't want it. There was a colleague of mine who nudged me and said, okay, don't be a prude. Even if you're not going to use it, buy it. That money's going to help. But there's something curious about the boy. The boy was possibly 12 or 13. It took me 5 years to find that boy. Later, now we know him. His name was Vinod. He carried a backpack. He was neatly dressed, well-oiled hair. He didn't have a footwear. So I asked him where was he coming in from. He comes from a place called Korukupetai, which is after Royapuram. He goes to school during the day. He doesn't have a father. Typical story of father running away from family. He has 2 younger sisters. He goes to school. His mother and sisters make agarbattis during the day. Evening, he sets foot on different parts of the city and sells it and makes a living. That was very inspiring for me. Not that I've not seen boys like this before, but something was very, very interesting because this is a boy who's willing to persevere, who's willing to do the hard work. He was not begging. The only thing possibly that's stopping kids like him to become the biggest leaders or become the kind of potential that they could find is possibly the absence of mentoring, absence of information on what I can do. And what if that mentor is somebody who's coming in from an opposite community, who's empathetic, who's educated, who is coming in from a place which this child does not have access to, or that person does not have access to. And if there was a possibility that 2 sets of these people can come together, and with the whole objective of making this child a better person, 2 sets of communities are going to talk to each other. And I think if we need to reduce this polarizing environment, people need to have communication. People need to talk. People need to understand my prejudices and your prejudices, my envies and your envies. And I thought that would be an amazing model if we can make that boy as a center of my objective and bring 2 people together. That was like a huge eureka moment. And
so how did you quit? How long did you take to quit?
I quit immediately.
As in, like, was it an overnight decision?
It was not overnight, but it was because of what happened in 2002. The 2 years were festering in my head. I was completely restless because that was very 30,000 feet above very, very esoteric theoretical arguments that I was placing with myself, but I couldn't touch and feel anything. See, for me, it was not because I was unsatisfied in my job. I was loving it. I was really treated as the blue-eyed boy of my office. I mean, I was really somebody whom everybody came to. But this unsettled me. And suddenly, I felt I could do something today.
Because of the...
because of the boy.
Because of Vinod.
Yeah. And he was like a trigger. He was somebody who said, okay, now I can touch and feel something.
So that, you called it a eureka moment. So it was aha.
Yeah.
It was aha, I could do it.
Yeah.
How long did you take to, kind of construct your idea around Nalanda Way from then on?
It took a little bit of time. I quit. The office was kind enough to still pursue my passion of trying to do Nalanda Way. I'm sorry. In spite of working as well for a little bit of time. But it was becoming difficult. So after I quit, after a couple of months, though the decision was taken overnight and a week, I had to get out of the office because I was not pushing myself to work on my program. I would go to Nageshwar Rao Park to sit and read up because I didn't want to stay at home. My parents were extremely upset of my decision. And I didn't want to stay at home because I was being constantly judged. I was being constantly looked at and saying, what am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? So I had to run away from it. So I would pack my bags along with my lunch to go to, those days, there were very, very few baristas in coffee days. So sit there a couple of weeks and pretend I had to be doing something. It took me a lot of time to find poor people. AVIS, you would be surprised me saying that living in a place like Chennai, you just look out and you will have people to see. I found it difficult. In my first step where we started was this Kupam in Ayodhya Kupam, which is opposite to city center. So it took me a while to actually go inside, negotiate and say, okay, can we work with your kids?
And which month was this in 2005?
So we're talking 2005, February, March.
So it was in a couple of months from the Vinod episode, quitting Nageshwara Park, and getting started with Ayodhya Kupam. Right? I would have loved to come back for this question, but I think we are in a flow and I want you to answer this question. You talked about existential questions, you know, the polarization between violence and humanity, right? Isn't income related to existence? Did ever a question come up saying, what are you going to do for earning a living? How are you going to pay your bills? And you did say that your parents were upset, but did your parents not stop you and say, you know, the typical way we are asked at home?
Yeah, all of that. I mean, I think, I hope my parents are not sneaking in somewhere here, but it took a long time for them to really come to terms with it.
Don't worry, I'll call them.
It really took a long time for them. I mean, I think they still thought it would be a sabbatical. They still thought the prodigal son is going to come back and go back to a job, get married and have kids and worry about kids getting to school. None of that. So it took a while. I'm not going to judge them for that, but I think I was going through all of that self-doubt myself.
Yeah, please talk about that.
Because as much as I can have a reasoning to why I'm doing what I'm doing, it took a while for us as Nalanda Way to figure out why we're doing what we're doing and to make sense of the purpose. Initially, in a couple of months, what we did actually was to find volunteers who could be mentors to children. But as we went along, we realized that a lot of these kids, especially boys, they're on the road, they're not going to school, and they're on the streets. So we asked them, why aren't you going to school? The typical answers were, school is boring, I'm not interested, teacher beats, it's not relevant to me. So we did an exercise. What we did was, we asked them, I think they were around 8th standard, 9th standard kids, we asked them, what do you hate so much in what you're studying? They said some subject of social science, history, and we said, okay, let's convert that entire chapter into a play. We got a couple of my colleagues and friends who are mostly theater enthusiasts to come and work with these kids, and the kids wrote the dialogues themselves based upon the chapter, and at the end of 1 week they actually performed a play from the chapter. But at the end of it all, they remembered the kings, they remembered the dates, they remembered the story, they remembered the sequence, and they made a presentation. So what was the biggest problem is that they were not averse to learning, they were not having fun while learning. They're afraid of classrooms. So coming back to my whole existential understanding of life and violence, the problem is not violence, the problem is fear. I think in all our lives and in classrooms, fear is the biggest problem. If we can understand fear, if we can confront it, violence is a consequence of it, or bliss is a consequence of it.
Awesome, awesome. I think he's making a very important point here. I'm going to come back to you to talk a little bit about your own insecurities, but in discovering his model for Nalanda Way, what he's trying to tell us is that it's the fear of not knowing how to proceed with the learning environment that the kids were struggling. That's on one side, but all of us also struggle with our own insecurities. We don't know what will happen in the next moment. Now, it is not about such lack of knowledge. You know, it's not about lack of awareness because you're quitting a job and doing something that you love, that you don't know what's going to happen in the next moment. There was a plane that went down this afternoon. Those 221 people on that plane did not know what was going to happen in the next moment. So I think, you know, as J. Krishnamurti would often say, it's not the fear of the unknown that plagues us. It's the fear of losing the known. And losing the known is losing the security of a job, the comfort of a paycheck, and a social stature. You know, oh, you're employed, you bring back money, you have money to transact. I think these are the factors that kind of, condition our thinking to the level that we become victims of our own earning a living syndromes. So thank you for that fabulous start, but I'm going to come back to you in a little while on the fear aspect and the insecurities. Well, let's move to the postbox, you know, and we have my first question to Madhu, you know, so you can turn on the mic and, you know, Sriram, how old were you when Gujarat happened? We're trying to get your age, okay, so.
27.
27. You were 10 years younger than him when you decided that you want to do fashion. I mean, how did you get that clarity? I mean, how did you decide that this is what I want to do? I want to go for an undergraduate program in fashion, A, and B, how did that link up to the idea behind Postbox? And then we'll move to Nikhil for your side of the story, and then we'll bridge the two, okay?
Okay, so thank you, AVIS. Thank you, Vani, for having us here. And to answer first how this entire clarity came for doing fashion design. I don't know when I got that clarity because since we were little kids, Amma would take us to the, you know, she'd take us to buy fabrics and to make clothes and all of that. So that's how I was introduced to tailoring and to fabrics and to clothing as such from a very, very young age. And I used to sketch and I had various ambitions. I wanted to become a dancer at one point of time. I wanted to become an air hostess at one point of time. But that was just very short-lived, you know. It didn't stay in my mind for too long. I just go back and back to sketching and I'd go back to clothes. I'd just be with Amma all the time. So when we reached 10th standard and the question came, which group are you going to take, science or commerce? I said, no, I'll take up humanities. I take up humanities. I want to do my English, history, political science, but at the same time, I want to focus also on design because until then, it was just schooling and lessons and exams and all of that. So in 10th standard, Appa asked me the question, you know, what do you want to do after 11th and 12th? So I said, I want to do design. I want to do fashion design. And he said, are you sure? Because I think you can step into other things like literature or political science also. So I was saying, no, it's going to be either fashion design or I don't know what else I can possibly do. I did not know of anything else. So after that, in 10th standard, I set my mind on going to Singapore and doing NAFA, and that was with the guidance of my parents. So they decided, okay, if you really want to do this and take it up, Singapore is a good place, and you know that's where the culture is really coming up in terms of disciplining the art as such. So moved on to Singapore, and I think I come from an age of new age designers where we believe more in the idea of working for what's going on in our mind rather than working towards somebody else's line of thought.
Oh, beautiful. Awesome.
So,
can you say that again? Working towards what is going on in your mind than working
towards someone else's line of thought.
Awesome. Continue.
So
I'll come back to that point.
That I think is a little tricky also, you know, to be like that. But that's what triggered the idea in me to start to have something where artists and designers, chefs, anyone can just come and make whatever they want to and, you know, go on. But that idea was more of an offline idea, right? Because when I was graduating from my undergrad course, fashion design, everyone asked me, so now what? Are you going to take up a job? You've spent so much on your undergraduation. Are you looking at Vogue? Are you looking at this? And I was in two minds. I wanted to do my master's or I wanted to start up something. I didn't really have the idea of working somewhere else because I was seeing this entire revolution happening in my age of people where we were thinking, where can I put up my work? You know, where I'm just 20 years old or I'm just 19 years old, but which label or which brand is probably going to take me right after undergraduation, right? I'd probably need to do a postgrad to get into a proper, really good label or to even be accepted into Vogue or something like that. So I thought that shouldn't be the case at all because 19, 20, when you're learning is the age when you actually come out with everything. And at that time, if you're suppressed and if you're made to go otherwise, then it's quite dangerous, at least from an artist or a designer's point of view, or in that matter, anybody else also. So I came back, I graduated last year and came back to Chennai. And I'd also at that time applied to Istituto Marangoni in Milan for a master's in fashion management. Just thought we'll give it a shot and I applied. So on the day of my graduation, I got my acceptance from there. But I came back to Chennai and I had a break of 3-4 months. I came back in June and I had met Nikhil the previous year, sometime in December. So we were well versed with each other's interests also. He's also a photographer, a journalist and everything. So we were just catching up one evening and we were talking about you know, how to take this scene forward because there can be so much that you can do with this entire space that's completely untapped right now. And I shared my idea of starting something offline like this in Chennai, you know, having a studio and having artists coming. So we bounced ideas off each other and Nikhil suggested, like, why not online? Because today everyone's on their phone, everyone's on their laptop or iPad. You wake up with it and you go to sleep with it. So nobody's got the time to actually step out of their homes and, you know, to go somewhere. I'm pretty sure if this video is being live streamed, a lot more people are watching it than actually sitting here. So it's the same idea that led to the creation of the post box. So the entire name, so we were just discussing, so what should we call it? And
it all progressed over one conversation?
Yes.
Okay. I want to hear about that, more about that also from Nikhil, but I just want to look at the clarity that we get from a 22-year-old here. And it's at one level extremely profound, and at another level it's so simple. And you know, if we actually go back and think about it, we must be asking ourselves, why can't everyone get this? You know, look at what she said, that my mother introduced me to the world of fashion, to fabric and to tailoring and all of that. I did try dance and I did try a couple of things, but I would always come back to fashion. You know, so there are some things that you love doing, there are some things that you don't like, and there are some things that you loathe. So among the things that you love doing, what do you love the most? And the more you do that, you know, the more you do that, the better the opportunity you have of living a life of your own. And the second point she talked about, more from a designer point of view, that, you know, I have a mind of my own and I don't want to follow somebody else's mind. And I think all of us have heard this line before. Be yourself. The whole world is working overtime to make something else out of you. Whereas if you just stay anchored to who you want to be, you'd be probably better off in the long run. And you'll lead a life, you know, far more fulfilling life than you have led so far. So I think two very, very profound statements over there. I'll go to Nikhil now, and I want to come back to talk about that conversation. So you, as we ask you the questions, you lead back to that conversation that led to the birth of Postbox.
Yeah,
okay?
Sure.
So Nikhil, your story is mechanical engineering because Papa kehte hain?
Yeah.
Is that the
story? I'll tell you what, yeah, it is that, to be honest.
And, no, I was just, you know, curious.
And I was a very bad engineer. Extremely bad. And I didn't know what I was going to do after I finished engineering. And I was at a stage when, boss, what am I going to do? And it was my cousin brother's wedding. And I'd come back from that and I...
Where did you do your engineering, by the way?
From here, St. Joseph's.
St. Joseph's?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the college was not the kind of college I wanted to be in. It was a very regressive sort of atmosphere which was being created. No sort of promotion to create and build products, build something from scratch, and that's what I love doing. So then that's where, Facebook had just recently opened an office in Hyderabad. And
so did you get placed from campus?
No. Okay. So then I got referred. And then the moment I got referred, I finished my telephonic interview, my telephonic screening, which was with a person from the US. And then after that came in about 2 more rounds on the telephone, again from people in the US. And then they were just building their team. So we were about 35 of us at that point of time. Now we are about 125. The team is. So what we did, I just took the interviews and I told myself that let's just go ahead. I think if there's anything, I would probably call myself a person who just like follows the motto of go with the flow. I just decided to just take the call and let's see what happens from there. So
engineering, didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then you got referred into Facebook.
Yeah.
You cleared the interviews.
Cleared the first round, and then after that what happened was the next round of interviews was the pressure test interviews, which is 4 back-to-back interviews over a span of 2 hours, with 2 interviewers per round and no break.
Wow. Intensive.
Yeah. So
but you're saying that you went with the flow at every stage.
So I just like went with the flow. So I decided that, hey, let's just do whatever it is. Let's just answer whatever I can. So I just went with the flow. They booked my tickets in the morning, enter the place, they gave me something to eat, enter the meeting room, interviews got over, they flew me back the same day, no break. When I landed, when I was checking out, I got a call from the recruiter saying I've been selected. And that I should, the nearest date for joining was July 4th. So I said, I'm sorry, but I cannot join on July 4th because I'm going to the Himalayas. Just before that, I had signed up myself for a photo trip to the Himalayas to spend 3 weeks there.
You were interested in photography?
Yeah, so I have, at that point of time, I was just getting to know about photography. I wanted to learn more. I think you have to get to a place, you have to follow a lot of learning. Continuous learning has to be there. So I decided to go and join these guys, and these guys are really good photographers. So 3 weeks there, came back, they told me that, sorry, we won't be able to put you in the August 12th batch, so September 12th batch. So I said, okay, cool, whatever, let's take it as it comes. So September 12th, I landed up in Facebook Hyderabad, and then from there, I think what happened was very early on, my manager realized that I was somebody who had a passion for building something from scratch. So that made me, I built 2 teams with 2 other folks. One which was a global team which was working out of the Hyderabad office, another team which was working out of Austin and Hyderabad, and that made me travel all across the world. And that was fantastic because when you meet different cultures, you learn a lot about what different perspectives from different parts of the world, and that makes you grow.
So you worked with Facebook for 2 years?
3.
3.
Yeah. So then, and in all this, one great thing when you work for a new age startup is that they allow you pursue your passion. What are the other passions you have? So I used to go on photo trips. So I used to exhaust my salary by the end of the month, traveling, having a good time. I hardly had any savings by the time I quit Facebook. Traveled quite a lot. Traveled to the Mahakumbh Mela. Did a lot of crazy things. Traveled all over.
You don't have to say that. I think everyone knows you've done a lot of crazy things because you've done everything which is anathema, okay? Number 1, you quit Facebook, okay? I think many people out here would give an arm and a leg to join Facebook, okay? At my age, okay? 2, you say you didn't have any savings.
Yeah, no savings.
Okay, and you pursued your passion, which was photography and travel.
Correct. So then at that point is when, I got my work showcased in 2 exhibitions. And I used to go there, and then it used to be this wine and dine event, all these great photographers in one corner, and then all these amateur photographers in another corner. So I used to sit there, and nobody used to come and look at my work. They look at my work, and then they'll pass away, and then they'll go sit there, and they'll be like, oh wow, fantastic, enough of that. I'd be like, what's going on, man? This is not right. There are so many talented guys out there. And by that time I knew I was pretty good. And I was like, this is not done. So I was like, there has to be something done about figuring out a platform for upcoming artists and designers to showcase their work. You know, the average age of an artist on our platform is 20 years old. Wow. They're still studying.
Okay.
Right? And these guys are brilliant. In fact, one of the artists, her work was copied by London School of Fine Art. And she comes from a small town in Delhi.
So you came up with this idea of having this platform.
Correct. So again, like go with the flow. So I met Madhu, and then we decided, like, let's do it over a conversation.
So in that conversation,
yeah,
was ever a discussion on how much money we will make and how long will it take to make money?
Ask our parents that question.
Was that ever?
No, I don't think I ever work on things with that perspective, at least in the beginning, you know.
We focus
because you have to really work on the idea. It's really critical. So, what was getting to me was that I was getting too materialistic.
That's a confession, yeah?
Yeah, I was, because I traveled only first class or business class. I never carry my bags. A BMW or a Mercedes-Benz was always parked in front of my house to pick me up whenever I had to travel outside India. I stayed only in the best of 5-star hotels across the world. I was a Star Wars Platinum member, so everything got to me after a point. I was like, this is too much. At a very young age, I was 24.
And you wanted to give it all up?
Yeah, I decided this is way too much. I need to get myself back to the ground. It's getting way too materialistic, and that's when, like, you know, it was I think overnight decision
to quit Facebook and start Postbox.
I don't think I took much time. August mid we spoke about it, and then I had an operation, and then I went back to Facebook in September. I told my manager I just finished 3 years. And I told her that I think it's time to quit. I've spent enough time here. I didn't have any ambitions of going to the US, primarily because my whole team is in the US right now. They've shifted base, but I was not interested in going to the US. And I said that I think it's time off for me to be here. I think I've got other things to play.
So this is September 2014?
Yes.
Okay. So I think young Nikhil teaches us something very important again. I think many of us, I spent a lifetime learning this, going with the flow. If you've been really able to learn that so young, I think you're blessed. You know, going with the flow is something that we just can't understand. You know, we as human beings, we think we are in control. Why? Because it's our education, it's our experience, it's our knowledge of, you know, speaking various languages, our ability to earn money, our ability to buy stuff. I think in Vani and my life, all of this, I mean, barring our education and our ability to communicate, I think everything else was taken away. Everything materialistic was taken away. So through that experience, we realized that we don't control anything, and that's how we came to the understanding that go with the flow. But young Nikhil there, you know, go with the flow. You know, I think that's a very profound perspective. And the second part, which I'm picking up from you, is there's nothing wrong with being comfortable in life, but if you get so used to your comfort, then you become a slave of your comfort, you know. And to be able to give up all that,
right now, like,
you come from a business family, so much of this was, you know, given. It was there for you to just take it, right? And you said you don't want all of that, and I think that's a great quality again.
Yeah, I mean, now what do? I go to a cow shed on some days. I pick up hay for our packaging. It's essential.
See, some of the Postbox products are over here, just so that people understand. This is an online platform, and a platform that brings artists together and allows Nikhil and Madhu to curate them and their work and reach the products to a larger mass of people. Now, all their products are available only online, right?
Correct.
Okay.
We were also started working with artisans. So we work with artisans like...
and just so you know, the designer of the bag is also in the audience.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, okay.
Vinay?
Can you please stand up? It's our star product.
Thank you, thank you. Just so that we're... Thank you. We must thank T.S. Ashwin of Odyssey to help us.
You can also check out these brilliant chai. This is a Davara tumbler.
I don't know what is it.
Yeah, it's to have your coffee.
Sorry, I didn't know.
You can have your coffee or your tea in it.
Yeah, so one of the things which we realized, especially in this time, is that both of us stopped taking a salary for the last 1 year.
Yeah, I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. In fact, I have a question for you and for you, Sriram. Now, as entrepreneurs,
Correct.
okay, it's about a year now.
Yeah.
Do you understand? I mean, obviously you do, but do you understand that income minus expenditure is equal to profits, and you are not taking a salary, okay, means that you can keep the business afloat for that much longer,
Correct.
right? So how do you deal with that? I mean, many of your friends must be doing many things that come to them more naturally, earning a living, getting a paycheck. You guys are not taking a salary. Has it ever worried you that you're not part of that social milieu where there is a certain amount of predictability to income?
I don't think so. I mean, I know I'm very assured that at some point I will be making money. So for me, at this point of time, I'm very clear that I have to build a great brand and a great ecosystem of artists to come together. That's what it's critical right now. Now the money will come if you eventually go towards that vision you have.
Fantastic, fantastic. I must tell you people, thank you. I must tell you people that we have no preps for this conversation, okay? I didn't know what I was going to ask, they didn't know what they were going to say. But what Nikhil just said, and I'm sure Sriram will endorse that, anybody in the audience will endorse that, is what, people call in the management world, they call it purpose. There's a deeper sense of purpose to the business. And it's always purpose that drives money. Money cannot drive purpose. Making money cannot be purpose. Purpose is the raison d'être. Why are you there? And that answer to create that ecosystem.
Correct.
I think that's a very beautiful answer, and I do hope and believe that you stay rooted to that sense of purpose.
Yeah, of course.
You have ever had any sense of insecurity? I mean, you're more a creator, a creative thinker, the artist in you.
Yeah, that's how it was. But then you get sucked into this entire rut of startup life and business, and now only I'm more open to the entire idea of, okay, at some point, what you said, income minus expenditure, profit.
Is equal to profits,
Yeah.
right? If it's not reading good every single day, something is wrong with your business. So we learned it. I pissed off $1 million learning that lesson. Okay, so I have every right to tell you that. Okay, so nevertheless, let me come to Sriram. So I'm going back to your question on insecurity, and you did talk about the model at Nalanda Way, which led you to bring art and music and the kids together in order to make the entire learning experience fun. But let's go back to you, the individual, and what kind of insecurities did you face at that time with regard to income, with regard to social stigma? Was there social stigma? Wasn't there pressure? That kind of social issues? And do you still face that after 10 years? 10 years is a long time, and Nalanda Way is so successful today. Do you still face those issues? You don't know which one to answer.
I think initially, I think there were a couple of insecurities. One, with respect to why I'm doing what I'm doing itself. It took initial couple of years for me to get to understand what is it that I need to be doing for what I believed as the problem. It took a while for me to understand what should I be doing as activities and programs which translate to the original purpose of why I wanted to start that. That took a while. Besides that, with respect to monies, it was a challenge because suddenly you're zero. Everyone else around you thinks that you're not doing a good right thing. There were a couple of friends of mine who really supported me. many of them. One of them is in the audience. But the most important was, somebody whom you thought was very, very close to you thinks that I think you've gone bonkers. That troubled you a lot, which because I think what the biggest thing besides money, it was someone believing that you're bankable, someone believing that you can be trusted. I was yearning for that. Because I was trying to believe whatever I'm doing, I can believe myself. Because I have no background in education. I have no background in arts. I'm not an artist of any sorts. I have no background in social work. So I'm figuring out as I'm going along. But all of this also meant that I have to pick up my bags and run with no fuel. And this is a social work, which basically means there's no capital to it. So it just went on about love and fresh air. But it also meant that I had to do a lot of things believing that I already had answers, even in spite of not having answers. Today I can speak with a lot of wisdom of having done it, but it took a lot of 3 to 4 years of battling my own insecurities, which could be with respect to money, with respect to dealing with, I don't have answers to some of these questions, to 3, community where I'm working on, them saying, are you sure what you're doing? Maybe, can we trust our children with you? And with respect to donors, trying to see, okay, is the money that we are providing to this person and this organization will lead to some outcome.
So somebody believing in you from the outside helped also. You said somebody is here in the audience who said, come on, you can do it.
With respect to friends, I mean, they just trust you, right? I mean,
they don't judge you. Good friends don't judge you. Yeah?
Even if they judge, even if they have a thing basically saying maybe you need to take care, but they just take you at face value. I mean, they just go with the flow. They're not that afraid that your loss or your failure is going to affect them so much, so they're willing to be much more giving. That's there. But I think early on, for me, because I had to depend on myself, my own salaries, there was this first time, there's this fellowship called Ashoka, which is an international network of social entrepreneurs. So what they do is to fund the person and not the project. So the goal is, if I fund you, provide you a stipend for 3 years, you would have the wherewithal and the energy to continue and pursue your passion full time.
And you got the fellowship in 2006.
That's right. And actually 2005, when I just had 6 children, and they said, okay, we're going to test you for 1 year, and then I had to go through the same process again so they give you 25,000 rupees every month for 3 years. You wouldn't believe when they first told me you're going to get 25,000 rupees every month. I was top of the mind. I've today gotten millions of dollars in support. But the first time somebody told me, I'm going to trust you.
That validation was very important.
Absolutely. Because that was your first validation. And it's not even for what you're going to do with children. It's the believing in you. That you will do something magical. I'm going to give you the money.
Did anything like that happen to you guys?
I think validation is very important.
For us, your validation comes
for us, it was artists. Artists.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're very sensitive about their work, right? And they want to make sure that the two of us understand the business.
So the artist community validating you was very, very important for you.
Extremely. So I traveled to Bangalore, I traveled to Bombay, I traveled to Delhi, Gurgaon. I met up with artists. I spoke to them about the idea. I told them this is what I want to do. And then a few of them said it's great. A few of them were skeptical about the entire plan. But overall, there was I could sense that there was a very positive vibe about setting up something like this from the younger generation. There's a tend to neglect this generation, the 19 and 20-year-olds, which shouldn't be done. This is going to be the driving force of the next century, and these guys should we should focus on them. And that's when we came into the picture.
Awesome. Did you seek any other validation other than artists?
Yeah, I think like he said, right, the first time somebody said, I'll give you 25,000 rupees, I think for us, that came from our families.
Yeah.
And that was important?
Yes.
Right. I think we
I
must
think
pause.
that's why-
We must pause here to celebrate the parents. You know, I don't know if Nikhil's parents are here.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so Nikhil's parents and Madhu's parents. You know, I think many of the times, I think our children are very, very clear about what they want to do, and it's the parents who get in the way. And you know, this is the second month in succession that we're meeting parents and children where the parents have not come in the way. So thank you, parents. You know, more than
Correct.
thank you, children. Okay, so. But I want to actually ask one more question. I want to talk about validation for a moment before I ask that question. It's very, very important to have somebody, you know, many people ask us, so I have this idea, but I don't know how to proceed. That's the easier question. I think it's the untrodden territory and the validation that human beings seek. Onnal Mudi Raja, Panne, you know, somebody patting you and moving you, egging you onward. We were at a workshop to understand screenplay writing. Vani and I, we did something very bizarre last week. We just said, you know, we've always been conducting workshops, why not go and attend one? So this was being done by, led by Mr. K. Hariharan, a very famous director and the founder of the L.V. Prasad Film Institute. And he talked about validation. He said when his films didn't do well, when his films, when he struggled, he said only at the age of 54, he's about 60 now, so only at the age of 54, he got a confirmed paycheck every month. So for the first 34 years of his life, he basically did not have a paycheck. And he had to live only on love, fresh air, and making films. But his wife, not even on a single day, he said, asked him, where is the next paycheck going to come from? And he said that validation helped him do many things in his life. And he says, I'll be extremely indebted to my wife. And I can say that of Vani too. We've gone through so much and she's never really, you know, sat there and moped or moaned and asked for, you know, where's the money coming from? Thank you. But it might not be the spouse. It might be a child, it might be a friend, it might be a parent, it might be just a mentor. But you need that validation, and I think we have to look for that. That is extremely important to move you onward. Now, we're going to move, this question actually comes from one of the people who's not here. I don't see Badri here today. Badri keeps telling me, Avis, you always ask questions about how people found their bliss. But you don't ask them how they find their bliss now. So I'm going to ask this question as a rapid fire to the three of you, and then we're going to open up for questions from the audience. Okay? So how do you think you could have done anything else in life when you look back now? I know you're an author. I know you write very well. And I think people know you speak very well, so that apart. But have you ever thought of...
Today, would I be happy? Would I be happy to die today? And it was not coming from a place of being depressed or cynical. I felt, no, I wouldn't be unhappy. I felt that, well, not bad, I've not done something in life. But that realization acted as a trigger and a switch to behave and believe that every other day henceforth, I need to live with a purpose. I need to be more simple, I need to be more humbler, because every day is a gift. So what I did to myself is that I said, well, for whatever that's left of me, how many ever years or how many ever days, I need to have a purpose, I need to have a set of values that I will articulate, and I will live by that. And this happened just a month back. So is as hot as the question, but that's what's driving me towards.
Awesome, beautiful. I think you used very important words, you know, being alive, you know. I've done everything from the point of view of being alive and not from the point of view of what am I going to be 10 years later. You know, I think that's a very beautiful point. And the point that live a life of purpose, you know, life is a limited period offer. You know, it's expiring. We all have come with expiry dates. We don't have the barcode reader to read it. That's it. You know, so if we had a barcode reader, we would all know when it's going to get over. So that's the beauty of life. You know, So thank you for that perspective. But you are enjoying the journey, every bit of it. Okay, Madhu.
As for me, I think whatever I'm doing right now, every day probably there are different ways in which I can do it, but there's not anything else that I would do different than this. That's what.
You're very clear.
Yeah.
Awesome, fantastic. Yes.
I love what I'm doing right now. I think it's the best thing ever. I mean, indirectly, we are employing close to 60 to 70 artisans who have not realized the scale of an online, who don't know the scale of an online business.
And their own skills.
And their own skills. We started off with one cane weaver. Today we are 20 cane weavers. We support about 3 families indirectly. So that sense of purpose, one of the things which I look forward to doing when I quit Facebook was leading a very restrictive life, because then you start valuing everything a lot more. So valuing the conversations, valuing the time you have, and all of that. And that's something which you start doing once you start restricting yourself to the bare minimum. And that's something which has been amazing. So it's,
you're loving it.
Yeah. So I don't think I'll do anything else.
You're loving it. Let me tell you a little secret here. Unsolicited secret here, and some of you can pick it up. Add your own thoughts to it in your mind. The way to stay and keep this fresh. You're young. Your business is young, and business and life will go through its own upheavals. What goes up comes down. What goes down goes up. How do you stay alive? How do you stay in love? And there Vani and I have a secret. We behave every day as if we met just today. So it never gets tiring, it never gets boring. And that's the way you got to work on your business as well, or on your work. Whatever you do, you got to do it with that sense of romance. ஒரு இசை இருக்கணும் அதுல ஒரு அழகு இருக்கு, அந்த அழகுக்கு ஒரு இசை வரணும். அது வரணும்னா அதுல ஒரு காதல் இருக்கணும். அந்த காதல் இருந்தாதான் அதுல ஊறி நனைஞ்சு அந்த immersed ன்னு சொல்லுவார் ஓஷோ. You should be immersed in what you do. Then, despite the challenges, you love every moment of it. So when we sit back 10, 15 years from now, and have a drink together, okay, and we'll probably talk about this day, and you'll still be in love with what you're doing.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So on that note, please don't go away. We have exciting gifts for people sitting here on this table. Thank you, Ashwin, for that. So there are going to be questions coming your way in a little while. It's our turn to ask you questions. Okay. There are 3 questions coming your way, and 3 mugs, beautiful mugs being given away for the day. But first we'll take your questions. Anybody with questions for any of the people here in the panel or for me, please go ahead and ask. Another person? Yes.
So Vinod, we discovered him after 4-5 years through another NGO where he would visit, and then we found him. And when I first met him, he was around 11 or 12. Now he works for Breaks India. So we sponsored his entire education, and he's an engineer and he works for Breaks India now.
I have a thing to ask you. You all have taken care of education of students and all. India is a country with a huge population. We need people. We need these youngsters who are restless with energy, and to curb a lot of this violence and crime. Since I'm a physical person, you need to sort of get people into hard sports to vent out their energy, and not only that, make it a profession. So that education or sitting in an office or desk job will not only make us unhealthy. You want people to get like rugby and not non-cricket sport. Because cricket is like king of sports in India. I always felt that I wanted to do this, start a thing, and like rugby, soccer, all these sports to be mainstream as good as cricket. And make that into professional careers for young people.
Is that an observation or a question?
I want Could
you
you
make
help
an
me with that?
observation.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't
Is
you
it
take it
possible?
offline? You know, he wants to offer an idea for Nalanda Way, so I think we should take it offline. I'm sorry, I have to manage time, so yeah, yes, young man.
Mr. Avis, I have a compliment for you before the question I ask. So,
Thank you.
as you said, you had a romance, right? So, romance is an art. So, all can't do, actually. So, I have a great compliment for you. So, if I start following you, then I'll become you. So, that isn't possible. So, that's inevitable, actually.
ஒரே ஒரு வழி இல்ல தம்பி, நிறைய வழி இருக்கு. அதுல பல வழியில PhD வாங்கினவன் நானு. So, சில வழி நான் உங்களுக்கு சொல்லி தரேன். But continue with your question.
Okay, sir. So, my question is, as they are entrepreneurs, so how to tackle the initial problems that they face in entrepreneurship? So regarding financial it might be, or organizing any kind of stuff, or anything it might be. So how to tackle this, initial problems that they face in the entrepreneurship, creation of a company, or creation of an institution, or anything it might be.
Well, this is not exactly the scope of this conversation, but broadly I will tell you that for all ideas to be seeded and become profitable, the fundamental base, the foundation, has to be purpose. Why are you doing what you are doing? And that why cannot be answered with, we want to make money. Okay? You have to answer that why from a deeper purpose point of view. What will be lost? Now take Postbox. What will be lost if Postbox ceases to exist? A platform for artists to come and express themselves. That will be lost. Not an opportunity for Nikhil and Madhu as entrepreneurs to make money. That won't be lost. Yes, in a physical sense that will be lost. But the deeper purpose is what they're trying to do with the artists. What will be lost? Now theirs is a social entrepreneurship. Okay, what will be lost if Nalanda Way ceases to exist? Here is a man who spent 30 years in the development sector, in the social development sector. So there's no dearth of NGOs, there's no dearth of non-profits. But an organization with that kind of integrity to touch the lives of children through art, that will be lost. So purpose is where it all begins. That's the first step. And then on that, of course, God created Bill Gates, and Bill Gates created Microsoft, and Microsoft created Microsoft Excel. After that, you can make profits on paper. So the rest of it, how do you translate those numbers into reality? Okay? But beyond that, your question should be offline with them. Okay? So thank you. What's your name?
My name is Samuel. And just one more silly question. It might be a silly one.
No,
but
please, there are no silly questions.
Just want to ask him something that even I'm a mechanical engineering graduate, and how could you come out from Facebook? Is it possible actually? Because I'm a Facebook user for 8 months. So coming out of Facebook really intends you on sentimental side as well.
How do you give up? How do you quit an organization like Facebook?
Facebook might be inferior now because WhatsApp hike have come now. But once Facebook was a leader, it have raised more than the raises of Orkut itself.
He's asking the emotional equity of quitting an organization like Facebook.
Not much from the India perspective. I'd pretty much done whatever I could do. So if there was anything I wanted to do, it was going to the States and working from the headquarters, which I was not interested in.
My reason was that because when I joined Facebook, many elderly people said that they won't join Facebook. Facebook use panada kana, adala use panada abinna. But
No,
I made sure.
I think he doesn't know that I'm
referring to the usage of Facebook as a social media platform. Okay, I think that's a large discussion. I think Samuel, we'll leave it there for now. Yes, ma'am, your question, ma'am. Oh, I thought he was talking about you quitting the job.
Nikhil was working in Facebook.
Yeah.
He was not talking about quitting Facebook.
Hello, this is
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
this is to Mr. Vinod. He is dealing with the children and education. Is he aware that there is something called learning difficulties? How does he tackle those children? Because it's very common when there is a household is upset. Most of these low class people, they don't have a very healthy household. It affects the children very much, and mentally, psychologically.
So how do you deal with learning disabilities of children, or children with special abilities, rather?
I want to slightly introduce what exactly we do. So we do three things in Nalanda Way. One is specifically work with adolescents who suffer from depression and trauma. And we use music, dance, art therapy to work with them. And we do this as a camp. So we do a 4-day residential camp. We do 4 camps now every month. The purpose is to identify children who have issues with self-esteem, go through the process and mentor them over a period of 1 year. As a part of that exercise, the next thing that we do is using art in education, which is working in schools. And there we specifically work in improving the skills and competency of school teachers for them to be more creative inside the classroom. Now, and one of the important areas is to help them understand and work with children who have learning disabilities, work with children who have mental, intellectual disabilities. This is part of the training program that teachers go through in government schools when they're working with these children as well. We've also extensively worked in the juvenile delinquent centers. We have 21 homes across Tamil Nadu. We've worked with children who've committed very heinous crimes, children who have huge behavior issues. And we've always felt that children who go through performing arts, music, have a greater sense over time to get in grips with their own behavior and change. And we've seen that happening. We've had a kid in one of the Madurai home who had killed his own father getting to the remand home. He was an extremely troubled child. And after 1 year, and a lot of these wardens are still used to the old ways of disciplining, he killed the warden and ran away again. He was brought back again. After 2.5 years of actually working with them, he learned music, he learned to play, especially he loved percussion instruments. He's somebody who's extremely confident about himself. Today he says, my body listens to what my mind says. So, and art has a beautiful way to look at handling therapeutically. And that's something that I trace back to my original question of handling fears. The experience of arts and experience of sports as well gives that opportunity for a human being to collect himself and handle one's fears.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. We'll take 2 more questions, exactly 2 more questions. Yes, Vahini.
Thank you for taking you through your journey. The question is for all 3 of you. You have had the bliss of finding what you wanted, but there would have been times of challenge and everything. So there should have been some mental mantra that you guys would have carried. Can you share that with us?
What's your personal mantra?
In my desk, I have a plaque, which I still carried from my previous office. This is a story. Winston Churchill, he was asked to present the convocation address at Oxford. And Winston Churchill, being Churchill, he's got the gift of the gab, right? So he came on stage and he said, never, never, never give up, and he went. I carry that on my desk. Some questions, some doubts, you just don't have answers. You just don't have to give up. You cannot give up. A failure is not an option. There are no rational explanations for that.
Awesome, awesome. I love that. I love that. Nikhil, what's your personal mantra? Good question, by the way.
So on my, so we had this thing when we joined Facebook where all of us were given this opportunity to say the one quote which you would like to define how you would want to be at Facebook. And at that time, one of the guys I used to really admire was Steve Jobs. So I said, stay hungry, stay foolish.
And you keep that to motivate you?
Yeah, it's on my visiting card.
Okay.
At the back, I printed it out on the Facebook visiting card, stay hungry, stay foolish. As long as you're really hungry to achieve what you want to get or learn as much as you want, nothing will stop you.
Awesome.
There's absolutely nothing.
Very good. Madhu, your personal mantra?
Just keep at it.
Just keep at it. Okay, that's quite like mine. You know, mine is, I'm a whiskey lover. And mine is Johnny Walker's line, just keep walking. Okay. So And that line has been immortalized in an A.R. Rahman song, which is pathetically filmed on Vijay. But the song is a great song, and the music is awesome. It is Ella Pugarum Oruvan Oruvanike, Ni Nadi Bole Odikondiru. That's all you can do with your life. Just go with the flow. Okay? One last question. Yes, ma'am?
I mean, I have to congratulate all of you who've been able to, you've been lucky enough to identify your bliss and then had the wherewithal to catch it. But then there are some of us, let me talk about myself. I don't know what my bliss is. I'm constantly searching for it. I'm constantly trying to find that purpose all of you talk about so purposefully. So, I mean, how do we get to that purpose, and how do we identify the bliss? Because at the face of it, I'm not necessarily unhappy. I can say I'm fairly content and I enjoy my life. So, but I'm still looking for the purpose. I'm still looking for the bliss, and I'm growing old at it. So, any words of wisdom for the likes of us?
Very simple. I think the first, you belong to a very distinguished minority who at least knows that you have to find your bliss. Okay? So that's a very distinguished minority. It's a great place to be in. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said this so beautifully. He said, the winds of grace are always blowing. You must hoist your sails to catch it. So grace is available to all of us. Bliss is available to all of us. Purpose is available to all of us. But if you're not pointed in that direction, if your sails are not hoisted, then you have a problem. So as long as you are clear that I must in some way find what gives me greater joy, it will find you. That's the way it works. You can't go find it. You have to only be aware and open to the opportunity. So there is earning a living that we all are exceptionally good at. There is no training required for that. And there is living. And they are two different things. As long as you're aware that earning a living is not the only thing to be done, there is a living aspect to life, and you're aware of it, your bliss will find you over time. It took me, I often say this, it took me for it to find me. I was 35 when it happened. For Madhu, it happened at 17. Okay? For Nikhil, it happened somewhere at 21. For him, at 27. So it will find you. That's
so basically, set sail, and then hopefully it'll catch you.
It will, yes.
Well, but I'm crossing all the numbers you just said. I've crossed all of that.
I'll tell you three people who were great. Okay, one, Captain Leela, Captain Krishnan Nair of Leela Group. He became, he was an army man. And he became an entrepreneur at the age of 60. Kushwant Singh decided that his bliss lay in writing well past the age of 50. Okay? And Amitabh Bachchan decided that he wanted to be an actor well around the time that Sriram asked those existential questions. Okay? So these things happen. They take their own time. There is no fixed time frame for it. And there may be times when somebody may tell you on their deathbed that I wasted all my life not knowing what I'm doing, or why I lived. I hope we don't get there, I hope we don't get there. Yes, Swami, the last question, absolutely, because we have to manage time. Are we at the 90th minute? Yes, we are at the 90th minute. So, one of the things that we like to, freeze on is a 90-minute module. So we are nearing that 90th minute. So yes, sir.
Yeah, just to carry on what you said, taking on from the discussions which you had today. When you have to love what you're doing, and you have to flow with it, your bliss will come and catch you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's one. The other comment which you made on Bill Gates. Bill Gates was blissful. He enjoyed what he was doing. And today, people are saying, the man who became rich to help poor.
Yes, yes.
I mean, it's fantastic. So I think bliss will come and catch as long as we love what you're doing and we flow with the tide.
Absolutely. And it will also change. The idea will change over time, like has happened for Bill Gates, you know. I think they put a computer on every desk, changed the face of mankind, you know, the way mankind works, you know. That to now, you know, work serving on the poorest of the poor across the world and providing health care for them, you know, I think it's a big shift. So these things go with the flow. I think that's the key message. I'm going to ask my 3 questions for the evening. Obviously, the 3 of you can't answer, okay? But you know, you should tell me later whether you knew the answers or not, okay? I'll request my son Ashirwad not to answer. Not that he knows the questions, but he may know the answers. So, you know, I don't want it to look like it's within the family, you know. So my 3 questions are, and the first question is, link an organization, an Indian organization founded in 1774 to any of these 3 people. Link an Indian organization founded in 1774.
Nalanda, right?
Yes?
Nalanda, right? The university.
That's 2nd century, 1774, not Nalanda. It can't be so easy. I know. Indian Postal Department. So it is not the Post Box. I was hoping Swami would get to Post India Post. So there we are.
You didn't know the answer, right? Please tell me you didn't know the answer. Ashwin.
Okay. So.
Please come, Ashwin. I request Ashwin of Odyssey to please hand over this mic.
So Ramesh there is new to the Bliss Catcher community. Welcome, Ramesh. Thank you. Yes, it is Indian Post, Indian Post and Telegraph Department, 241 years old, 1774. My next question. So is this getting interesting, guys? Yeah. Unfortunately, we have only 3 mugs to give away. Okay. Link. This I think will be very easy. Link Madhur Bhandarkar to any of these people. Passion. Who said passion? Anita. Yes, I heard it there first. Yeah. Okay, I can give away 1 more mug. Okay, link Madhur Bhandarkar again. No, not company. Thank you, Anita. Thank you. No, not 3 idiots. Not corporates. No. Oh, you meant 3 idiots? Make that 4. Make that 4. Make that 4. Okay, you can't get it? Not Chandni Bar. Wahan jana hai. Huh? Not City Lights. I think we are getting all the Bhandarkar movies except Traffic Signal. So the answer is Traffic Signal and children, marginalized children. Okay. And my last question is, this is also a sitter. And I think if you heard the conversation very intently, you'll crack this in a jiffy. Connect an Indian emperor. Who said Ashoka? Swami, yeah, you get your. Okay. Okay, the question is, connect an Indian emperor who ruled India between 268 BC and 232 BC. And that was Emperor Ashoka and the Ashoka fellow over here. Okay? So, Swami. Okay. Can I ask another question? Let me ask you, or who answered Ashoka? Who else answered Ashoka? Ramesh answered Ashoka. We'll give the mug to Ramesh because I have another question, but that'll be a long-winded question, so that'll take away time. So thank you, Ramesh. Thank you so much. Huh? No, I have to manage time because I have to do a quick wrap-up as well. So, but thank you so much, everybody, for being here with us and enjoying this evening. I want to make a couple of announcements before I do the wrap-up. Our next event of the Bliss Catchers is on 28th of November. It's a Saturday at 7 p.m. here. And we have Kavitalaya Krishnan of K. Balachander's, you know, he describes him as the dog in the HMV ad, as far as his relationship with K. Balachander goes. Krishnan was an engineer who took to acting. And it's a fascinating story, and the man, is a great conversationalist. You'll love meeting him. We also run another event series called Happiness Conversations. This will be at the Inco Center in the Boat Club area. It's closer to Madras Club. And it's on 7th of November, Saturday, next Saturday. And our guest that evening is Manohar Devdas, the famous artist. Please do join us. That event series looks at people who have faced life situations and challenges stoically. How did they brave a life situation and how have they overcome it? So please do join us for that. That event is at 6:30 p.m. next Saturday, November 7th. The Kavitalaya Krishnan event is here, November 28th, Saturday, 7 p.m. And you'll get the invite for the Kavitalaya Krishnan event shortly.
Where is that area in the Boat Club? What is that area?
When you go from Ammanana towards Madras Club, it's on the right side. It's called the Inco Center, Indo-Korean Center. We must thank T.S. Ashwin for being such a fabulous host. It's without Odyssey's help, we wouldn't be able to, have all of you here and have this wonderful conversation. I'll invite Ashwin now to give away our beautiful mugs to our three guests. Okay. Sriram, I'll give you. Yeah. So before we wind up, let me just, wrap it up with a perspective from Osho, who says that life actually has got no meaning. You're born, and the only certainty you have is that you will die. So between all this, between birth and death, all this is drama, and he calls it drama. So birth and death and life has no meaning. Yet to make life beautiful, the only way you can make your life beautiful is by not searching for meaning, but by being happy doing what you love doing. And he takes the example of a rose, and he says a rose has actually no meaning. What is a rose? It's a flower. You call it a flower, but is the rose bothered about what its purpose is, what its meaning is, how much money is it going to earn? None of it. The rose just blooms, and as the title of my book says, fall like a rose petal, it just falls, withers away and falls. But the moment you look at a 100-rupee note, says Osho, you begin to think of it not as a beautiful note. You think of it as a meaningful note. So he says, between the rose and the 100-rupee note, the material value of the 100-rupee note takes you away to believe that it has a meaning. And where there is meaning, there is no beauty. So don't look at and search for meaning. Just live your life doing what you love doing. And then, like Nikhil, Madhu, and Sriram here, hopefully you will catch your bliss. Thank you, and good evening, everybody.